interview might have been um Yahoo Sports. So I believe she did this April 12th, which is a couple of days ago.
Everybody's like, oh, yeah, sex symbol, you should do the body issue. I'm like, yo, I'm in paradise. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. Like, I'm just...
Fans have been raising questions about Sydney Colson's status with the Indiana Fever, largely due to her absence from social media and public-facing activity over the past several months. Her last post on X dates back to December 5th, and outside of a brief Yahoo Sports interview from mid-April where she spoke about enjoying her off-season, there has been little visible activity from her heading into the new season. The interview itself was lighthearted. She brushed off questions about outside noise and said she was simply focused on living her life, but the overall quiet surrounding her has prompted genuine curiosity among fans about whether she remains part of the team's plans. The Dallas Wings press conference situation involving Azzi Fudd also continued generating discussion.
I'm just living my life and just, enjoying myself. It's not about that, you know what I'm saying?
So it looked like Sydney Colson is on vacation or some sort or something. But I believe that was the last time we heard from her, bro. Like, I have not seen her.
When a reporter asked Fudd whether her relationship with Paige Buchers, which Buchers had publicly confirmed on TikTok the previous year, was still ongoing, and whether the two had spoken with other couples in the league about managing that dynamic as professional teammates, a Wings team representative stepped in before Fudd could respond and declined to comment on players' personal lives. Fudd appeared caught off guard by the question before the team shut it down. The reaction to that handling was pointed. The core argument from critics was one of consistency. Male athletes at every level, from Steph Curry to Aaron Rodgers to Shader Sanders, routinely face personal questions in press settings and are expected to answer them.
Not seen or heard anything from Sydney Colson. Let me click on latest here. Let's see. There has not been any Sydney Colson news. Somebody said, of course, we're taking seriously Sydney Colson in the face of the league. Also, beloved Sydney Colson, who played for the Aces, got so much hate for joining the Fever, and she loved the fans and this team. They all had a blast, but was shocked that she...
Fudd is the #1 overall pick in the draft, a position that comes with a level of scrutiny and public interest that any athlete at that stage should be prepared to navigate. The criticism was directed primarily at the franchise rather than Fudd personally, the argument being that stepping in to shield a player from a relevant, non-hostile question does not treat her as a professional, it treats her as someone who needs protection from ordinary media interaction. Several commentators framed it as the organization undermining its own players' credibility by suggesting she could not handle the moment herself.
In this team, they all had a blast, but was shocked that she didn't change as a person. But just being, I don't know what they mean by there. Is Sydney Colson out of the league? A lot of people have been wondering, bro, like, where the hell is Sydney Colson, dog? Let's see here. I'm trying to see if there's like any updates on her. Even 5 minutes of research we've shown you, Monkey. No, I don't know. We're not getting into that. As long as the money...
On a more positive note, the Fever released a highlight package centered on Aaliyah Boston following her historic contract signing. The video featured teammates and coaches describing her as the stabilizing presence in the locker room, the player who keeps everyone grounded under pressure. On the court, the package leaned into her efficiency in the paint, her ability to draw doubles, her passing range, and her shot blocking, a full picture of what she brings to the team on both ends.
As long as the money ain't crazy, ain't nothing wrong with having Sydney Colson. April 14th names: Natasha Cloud, Tiffany Hayes, Tina Charles, Emma Messerman. Has Emma Messerman went to his team yet? Timmy Figblin gone. So this is old. This is an old thing here. And we're not going to talk about the AZ Fudd situation. I know like a lot of you guys want me to. I'm not talking about that.
Boston herself spoke briefly about how much the Indianapolis fan base means to her, describing the crowd support as something she would not trade for anything. The Indiana Fever's signing of Maisha Hines-Allen on what amounts to a near-minimum contract stands out as one of the most favorable deals anywhere in free agency this offseason. The gap between what the player brings and what she will cost the franchise is genuinely significant.
You guys want me to? I'm not talking about that. I could care less, about who she going with. That's not really any of my business, but I will say this about the AZ Fudd situation. I feel like AZ Fudd should have answered the question. The Wings should not have stepped in there and not answered the question. I mean, not allow her to answer the question how they did. They definitely should have allowed her to answer the question.
There is a minor technical footnote worth addressing. Had the deal come in at a slightly lower figure, it would have produced a marginally smaller salary cap charge. But since the difference essentially transfers to Aaliyah Boston's historic extension, the practical impact on roster construction is essentially zero.
Should have allowed her to answer the question. Those of you guys who might not know what exact situation we're talking about this situation that went down yesterday during a Dallas Wings presser. I'll touch on this. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to make a whole video about this, but I will touch on it. That is AZ Fudd signaling to I would say
the cap math resolves the same way regardless. Evaluating Hines-Allen honestly means acknowledging both what she is and what she is not. A realistic market valuation for her, based on skill level and fit, probably lands somewhere around $650K to $700K.
I would say the Wings PR team about this question, let's listen.
Paige announced last year on TikTok that y'all were a couple, and I'm wondering if that is still the case, and if so, if y'all have talked to any other couples in the league about how they negotiate that dynamic as pro teammates.
I understand why you have to ask that question, but we're going to respectfully decline from commenting on our players' personal lives. Go to the next question.
So in this clip here, you can clearly see AZ Fudd look a little startled. Now, somebody who
She is not dramatically more impactful than Monique Billings, who is making a more substantial salary, but the comparison only matters at similar price points, and that is not the situation here. What the Fever are getting is one of the better backup fours in the league at a price that would not buy a rotation-level contributor at most other positions.
It's one of those ones where this is a player who, I'm going to be real, is probably a 600-700K player. Like, if you ask me, is Maisha Hines-Allen worse than Mo Billings? My answer is yes, but not by much. Like, Maisha Hines-Allen, I understand she wasn't very good for the Wings last year. I understand. She signed a max contract last year. The Wings deemed her good enough to sign.
The backup power forward tier across the league is shallow. Naz Hillman is the clearest comparable, and beyond her, the list thins out quickly. Hines-Allen, even after a difficult season with Dallas, offers the physical tools and positional versatility to function as a part-time starter on a struggling team or a high-quality reserve on a contending one.
The Wings deemed her good enough to sign a one-year max. And I understand it was a bad contract. Like, signing her to a max was crazy. But with hindsight being 2020, we can say that. At the time, nobody said it was the worst contract ever. People said it was a bad contract. Don't get it twisted. People didn't like the contract, but it wasn't like the worst contract ever where everyone's.
At this contract level, she also carries genuine trade value. A player with her profile on a minimum deal is an asset that other organizations will take notice of if circumstances change. The previous contract with Dallas is relevant context. The Wings gave her a maximum deal, which was widely considered aggressive at the time.
It wasn't like the worst contract ever where everyone's going mad about it and complaining that the Dallas Wings don't know what they're doing because they signed it. Everyone thought, okay, you know what? She'll be a passable starter. She wasn't. Like, the reality is that she wasn't a passable starter, really. But, like, we've now got a situation where the Indiana Fever have signed a player that can fit in as a part-time starter. He's going to be a really, really good bench for. Like, how many better back?
Not the most criticized signing in league history, but one that generated real skepticism. She did not perform at a starter's level, and the contract aged poorly. That outcome crashed her market value significantly, which is how the Fever were able to secure her at this price point.
Backup fours are there in the league. Naz Hillman. So Naz Hillman. Is there any other better fours in the league? Backup fours. Beck Allen, if she's playing four. But she might like kind of interchange 3-4. The Mercury's, I don't think so.
The comparison to Lexi Hull clarifies the value further. Hull is locked into $800K per year on a 2-year commitment. Hines Allen, who operates at a level not dramatically below Hull's, is coming in at less than half that figure on a single-year deal with no long-term obligation.
The Mercury's, I don't think so. Maybe, yeah, Value Yai probably plays backup four for them, so probably not. She's one of the best backup fours in the league. And why are people complaining? Protected. She got paid a minimum contract. We have just signed a player who is very, very good on a minimum contract. Or at least very, very solid. And again, very tradable. Yes, she is literally an asset. She is an asset.
That is a meaningful disparity, especially for an organization that has had to stretch to retain players it values. The signing actually represents similar value to the Dantas addition, but with meaningfully better upside. If the Hines Allen news had been announced first and Dantas second, the reaction might have been reversed. The Dantas deal drew criticism primarily because it came out early and set the tone for the offseason narrative.
Tradable, yes. She is literally an asset. She is an asset. This is one of the biggest bargain contracts in all of free agency. Wings fans going mad at her. It's like, worst case scenario. Like, people saying, oh, protected. You're not going to cut her and sign someone better on the minimum. You're just not. There's not a player out there on the minimum that's willing to come to Indiana that you are going to sign. The Indiana Fever had to pay $800K to Lexi Hull next year. Like, we have to take that into account. How much?
In isolation, signing a veteran frontcourt player with playoff experience near the minimum is a reasonable move. Hines Allen's version of that same logic just comes with a higher ceiling. There is even a scenario where she competes for a starting spot.
We have to take that into account. How much it costs for the Indiana Fever to keep players. Like, they are literally paying Lexi Hull $800K. $800K. If you're getting somebody who, I hate to say this, is almost as good at basketball as Lexi Hull for under half of what Lexi Hull is going to cost. Like, you have to be looking at this as a positive.
Billings is the likely frontrunner at the 4, but the competition between them in training camp is not a foregone conclusion. Either outcome is fine. A starting Hines Allen would be a significant upgrade at that spot, and a Hines Allen coming off the bench provides depth the team was otherwise lacking at the position. The salary cap increase over the past cycle makes this signing look even more favorable in context.
What's going to cost? Like, you have to be looking at this as a positive. This is a bargain. This is actually a bargain. And I was like, oh, she has, I don't know what Leah's making, but MHA has to be making at least $500K. And I thought $500K would have been a nice contract for her. Would have been a good contract for her. Like, if you had asked me how much I thought she probably would have been an okay amount to pay her, I would have said $500K was a fair amount. Like, I wasn't going to say $500K was a bargain contract or anything.
The cap has expanded considerably, and yet Hines Allen's 2025 compensation is barely higher than